What's up? Welcome to another edition of Dragon Storm's Ancient Myth. You can edit that. Ancient Myth, Legends, and Lore. Or you can leave it in. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's a tongue twister for me. Dragon Storm's Ancient Myth, Legends, and Lore. Boom. Yeah.
Boom.
Delivery. Welcome back. So today we're joined by Bill Crooks, my co-host on the radio show, my main man, very good friend, a brother to me. And he's a smart guy, and we wanted to kind of bounce a few things off of him with regard to today's topic, which is the Ark of the Covenant. But we may get to the Holy Grail if we have time. We'll get to that. If not, we'll get to it on the next show. But before we do that, we got a couple contest announcements and things to talk about, and we want to hear. We didn't do this in the first show. We wanted to, or it came at the very end, so people might have not heard it. Is the sound, the audio sound of a black hole, which is fascinating as heck to me, because if you think about it, light can't even escape a black hole, and yet somehow it emits a radio frequency, a sound that you can hear. And according to Anthony, it sounds like 1 billion dying souls. So this should be interesting. You want to play that, Anthony?
Yeah, let's get that going, and you can find it very simply on YouTube as well. We're going to play it.
Wow, that's creepy.
But they said they used some kind of radio waves and all different types of interfaces to grab this sound. And I think that they said that some of the data was actually input. So I guess they had breaks and spaces in what they were actually able to get a recording of. And I think they used like AI or computer generation to kind of fill in the blanks. But that, from what I read, it's basically what the sound is. And it really... to me, it was the first time I heard it. I was the same way. I'm like, is this real? Because it really is disturbing. If you close your eyes and you listen to it, it's crazy.
It's like from a horror movie or something.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Bill, how is this video to you? Because it's lagging and jumping around and blurring out to me.
Yeah,
but
it's a little bit, but I can keep up. The interesting thing about sound, though, especially as it applies to being in a microphone, it's not sound like we're hearing it in our ears. It's the vibration and the way a microphone is interpreting it.
Yes.
Like I said, I know I've been recording things where I'm like, it's quiet, and then I got this hum in the background. It's because there's a vibration that a microphone will pick up. So it's hard to say if that's the way it would sound
in real life. Yeah.
Well, make for a very creepy story, that's for sure. That's almost like the Event Horizon. You remember the movie The Event Horizon? It was kind of a similar type of thing, right? Where they wanted to pass through the black hole, and hell was on the other side, or as they were passing through it, or something like that. I remember it was a pretty disturbing movie too, and I just thought that as far as what's out there on the internet, there's so many things that not able to really get any information on at all. But I thought this one was pretty interesting, based upon that involvement.
Getting sucked into the void.
Yeah.
The void, the void.
Yeah. Creepy as a mother.
Into the blackness.
Well, I don't know, but black holes are one of the most fascinating things in the universe, in my opinion. A lot of people, experts, scientists believe they kind of know what they are and what they... No, they don't. Nobody knows what a black hole is. We know it's something with gravity that pulls massive amounts of stars, billions of stars into it, and then light can't even escape. Where does it go? What does it do? We don't know. I mean, does it end up on another side of the universe, a dimension? I mean, as a writer, as a novelist, my mind is constantly, I'm writing this sci-fi book in my mind, and I'm always thinking of different, interesting, prospects of what it might be. But who knows? We probably will never know. We may know when we go to heaven, when we go to go see God, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but that might be the other side, so I don't want to know.
Right. Well, speaking of that, that's a great segue. Well, first of all, we do want to. You wanted to show a couple of our prizes off and talk about the The riddle gift.
The riddle, yeah. So I'm going to read this month's riddle. We had a little bit low turnout. It's about half of what we got last month. So I think we just want to get the word out there a little bit more. The prize again is that 4th century, from the 4th Crusade. It's a really nice, coin from that era.
Amazing. You gave me one. You gave me one. How cool is that, dude? I got this coin from the Crusaders, and it's insane, dude.
Yeah, they really are. They're beautiful.
I gotta admit, I didn't know there was a second riddle.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna do one every month. So for some of the other prizes, I've got the old insect in amber, which we'll do one month.
That's
which
cool.
is cool. Yeah, I mean the possibilities with that. That's where Jurassic Park. He came up with that whole storyline. So that's a great.
Yeah.
There might be some problem with the social media distribution though, because I got that first one, I didn't get the second.
Oh, you know what? I don't think I sent out another email blast. So it's on the regular site, which will be linked from at the end of this video. We do all the links, so it'll be on there. But and I actually put a link. I was actually Gunner's wife who said, "Hey, you got no link on your main site." So there's one on the main Dragonstorm site that'll take you right to the contest too. So I got this one. This is a Roman era. This is a really nice coin.
Roman era coin. Let me explain what this is really quickly. So during the Crusades, obviously there was a big conflict between Rome and the Crusaders or whatever. They made their own money. Now these coins are probably the equivalent of like of $1 back then, or who knows? They're made of probably tin or maybe nickel and whatever it is. But what's it made of, Anthony? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's probably all the different metals they could scrounge up and kind of. It was kind of like a guarantee of like like our dollar is. It wasn't really probably worth much.
It's like any precious metal. You have like pennies or copper; they're not worth as much. Then you have silver, which is worth a little more. Then you have gold. So I mean, somewhere in there was this particular coin that had some value. This was be like your everyday spending cash. It wasn't like you're going to go buy a new horse with it, but you're going to have it if you needed to buy food or whatever. But it was a form of currency that they used. I guess it was the Roman Catholics who used it.
Yeah, but I guess on the pilgrimages, because that's really what a lot of the Crusade stuff was there at the beginning, right? It was when they were guarding the I keep saying the Crusades too, and I'm talking more about the Templar. I mean, it really is. The symbols on the coins have to do with the Templar, and they were the ones who were guarding a lot of the pilgrims when they went to the Middle East on holy journeys and stuff. So I think they were doing. I know they created like their first banking systems through them. And they were, I guess they were giving these coins out to signify the money that you had left with them. Because you would leave your money with the Templar would guard it. You'd go to whichever holy place that you were going or holy icon that you were going. And then when you came back, you'd give them this and they would return, your gold that they had guarded for whatever the fee was to guard it. So, and that's how they became very, very wealthy. That was part of how they became very, very wealthy, was the interest on the money they were protecting for the pilgrimages. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So how do the money changers reconcile all this? They just try to. How do they do that? They weigh it and they try to assess how much metal's in it, or
yeah, I guess whatever the value was. It's kind of like our banknotes, right? So $1 worth of gold was $1, and $5 worth of gold was $5. And depending on which region they came from, which we were looking at last time, was all the different. Whether it was the Spanish or the Roman or whatever the pilgrimage was, they had different stuff. And at some point, the Pope had cut them off. That was the big part that really got them creating some of their own currency. Was Pope Clement, and this is before he completely turned on them. This was a little bit earlier on. It was foreshadowing. He decided that they could not use I guess it was the Roman currency at the time, and they had to. That's where they had to actually produce some of their own coinage because they didn't have access to the Roman Catholic funding for a period of time. And I think it was a few years, actually, which is great because this is going to lead us right into what we're going to talk about because they're so involved with what we're going to talk about tonight. So, and let's do it.
One away. So, by the way, the riddle, I want to make sure everybody knows that we have a monthly riddle with a contest, and that's the prize this month. Very cool. And there'll be some other cool prizes. So did you want to read the riddle again or no?
Yeah, I'll read the riddle. And one month we're going to do I I got a pretty cool dinosaur tooth here from, I think it's a minosaur. I think I would screw it up if I said it any other way, but I got a couple of nice things to do over the next few months. So,
That's cool.
All right. So this is the riddle. It says, an image of a king through radiation doth sing, a graven mark, Clement declared a lark, a story of the rising sign. At first in France, a gift so fine, but earlier than the first, a stony shrine. So, and if you go to the website, you'll be able to actually read it and ponder it a little bit. And I think if you think about it, and like I always tell everybody, you could do a couple little Google searches, you should be able to pick up on it. So from all the right answers submitted, we'll randomly pick one winner who will win the coin. And that ends on the 26th. So you still have almost a week left to try to get your name in. And like I said, there wasn't as many entries this time, so you have a good chance of winning the coin.
That's good. Maybe it was because it's harder. The harder one was like, man, the first one was kind of easy, but this one's a little harder, so you get less entries. Bill could probably figure it out. I
saw him smile. I think he got it already.
Provided the coin is still legal tender in my favorite bars and brothels, I will figure this riddle
out. Right. Awesome.
Right. So, well, I guess that's kind of a good segue into our topic for this show. The Ark of the Covenant, which is, I know a little bit about it, on just bits and pieces. I think a lot of us are familiar. I think the closest anybody, the average person knows about the Ark of the Covenant, unless they're Jewish or really into religion and faith, the Old Testament, is Raiders of the Lost Ark, the movie. We all know Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they based that movie on like real, I guess, myth. It's myth or real legend lore, which is in the scripture, in the Torah, in the Bible. And so that was kind of the real deal. But obviously it was a movie. But there's a huge history behind it. And Anthony, you're welcome to jump in and take over. I'll just give you my, my quick. God told, I guess it was Moses to create this ark to hold or case the 10 Commandments. And then to the Jewish people, they carried it around with them for many, many, years, centuries, even, I think. And then at one point, there was very, very powerful. People died if they looked at it, if they touched it, if they moved it wrong. And at one point, they thought it was going to help them win a war against the Philistines. So they brought it out thinking, we got a secret, weapon. You can't beat us. And they walked out there with this ark, and they lost the battle because God didn't tell them to. That's the thing. Every other thing they told them to do this, do this. God had told them. But this time they got cocky and like, oh, we got this ark. We're going to put this out on the battlefield. You can't beat us. We got the ark. Boom. Ark comes out. Philistines beat them, and they take the ark. And from that point on, nobody knows.
Well, wait, it comes back. It does come back. And it's funny because we, like you said, we all really have a very good knowledge from Indiana Jones. We all have some really basic knowledge of the Ark, and from Sunday school and all those things. The reason that I had said to you, I think I had emailed you in the middle of the night, was I had watched the program, and then I did a little bit of research. There is so much more to this story, and I can't imagine that it really has not gone more mainstream when you find out about this. So I think for brevity purposes, I'm not going to get into the basics of the ark. It was Moses. He went up on the mountain. He was given the 10 Commandments. They used the gold from the idol that they had created because he had disappeared on them, and they melted it down and they made the ark out of it. Okay, so we can skip right ahead to that. First of all, I always thought that it only contained the 10 Commandments. I come to find that is not what it only contains.
Yeah, there's manna in there.
Right. Now, what is manna, first of all? Manna is food. Now, how do you fit food for 40 years of Exodus to feed millions of Hebrew people? So that has led into a lot of conjecture. The other thing is it had Moses' brother's staff, Aaron's staff, in it. And Aaron's staff is the staff from the plague time with the Pharaoh that was able to turn into a snake. He performed the feat in front of Pharaoh to try to get him to release the Hebrews, and that was one of them when he was able to turn the staff into a snake. So that's supposed to be in the case too. And then I also read in a couple of other research spots that there were scrolls and things like that, which you might expect to be in there. So what is manna? So we might as well, since you mentioned it, hit on that first. It's some kind of a starch-based food. And it was supposed to be in the ark. Now, the ark's dimensions are pretty well known from written history. It wasn't big at all. It wasn't tremendous. It was almost like a captain's chest kind of size.
Yeah.
So
about
what?
5 feet long, right?
Yeah, I mean, so what the theory is that there was a machine of some sort within this case, and that this machine was powered through some type of a radioactive function, and that
Nuclear.
through a radioactive or nuclear function, it was able to produce life-sustaining food for the Hebrews for 40 years. So I thought this is not something that we've ever discussed in Sunday school, or is it mentioned in anything about Raiders, or really any documentaries I've really watched too much of or read about. And I found this to be really, really fascinating, and I think it's the most fascinating part of the ark because it coincides with some very strange stories from all different cultures. So, like you said, with the Philistines, they used the ark to crumble the walls of Jericho, and that was approved and okayed, and they got the stamp of approval from God to do that. So they did use that. And in some of the different descriptions, it says it emitted this this vibration or this sound that was almost like a super powerful, through the use of electricity or nuclear use. It was able to emit this incredible vibrating sound that actually knocked the walls down.
Right, but they did that for 6 days, and then they used trumpets and made a lot of loud noise that ultimately did it. So a lot of
Right.
people, I don't even think, realize that the ark was toted around for 6 days.
6 days around it. So was that a charge up? Right? Is that a charge up period?
They did it.
Right. So I mean, that was one of the theories.
I mean, you could make the argument that aliens or something like that, but in my opinion, God created the aliens too, so it all comes down to God.
It all comes out, right? Yeah. We've discussed that a bit before. It's something otherworldly either way, right?
So we're talking about God. So I mean,
right.
It's like anything goes. You know what I'm saying? Right. This is God we're talking about. So if he wants to create a nuclear fusion machine that pumps out Rice Krispie treats for 40 years, he can do that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He's capable. So whatever the case is,
Hey, real quick, speaking of the walls of Jericho, does this foreshadow the fall of your character, Jericho?
Oh, no. I promise no. I love Jericho. He's not going anywhere. He's one of my favorites. Yeah, that is where I thought of the name from, though. It's got a certain ring to it, and that is where I got the name from the walls of Jericho. But so with the ark, you get they take it from them. They take it from the Hebrews because of what happened. They used it without their authority, and while the enemy has it, there are all these reports of sickness and death, and the descriptions are almost like radiation burns or radiation sickness. And then you come to find out that the ark must be covered by this special tarp. And I'm just going to look at my notes here because there was a lot of information. But the really odd thing about this tarp is it is supposed to have come from a unicorn, from a single-horned animal. And I can't think of anything that's a single-horned animal, but a unicorn. So how do you pull the unicorn legend, which then goes, right, it goes to King Arthur. There's unicorn legends with King Arthur, which also has tie-ins with the Grail. So there's all these intertwined stories with these religious artifacts. Eventually, the Philistines, they give it back to the Hebrews. They don't want to be bothered with it anymore. They give it back to them.
Right, and to the point of the radiation that might be emitting from this thing, one of the things that plagued them was tumors. They said people were getting these growths and things on them, and it was very descriptive in the Bible that this is one of the main reasons they gave them back, not to mention plagues, which could be radiation sickness. They thought maybe it was the bubonic plague or something, but it would also be consistent with radiation sickness.
Right. That makes more sense.
And they were the only people who were allowed to deal with the ark were the priests. So it was Aaron and this group of priests. And now I remember seeing the garb that they would wear, and it was really these bizarre looking things. And we'll post some pictures of them. So basically what it is it's a big chest plate, almost like you would see at the dentist when they take an x-ray. And it has a bunch of colored gems in it. And then they would wear other gear that pretty much covered almost probably 95% of their body was covered by some type of metal or sheathing, or if
Presumably
it's
lead.
lead, yeah. So and whatever this hide from this single horned animal is, maybe has lead in it somehow. But anyway, the construction, and let's do that because then we could tie it together. So the construction of the actual ark itself is amazing the way it's described. And basically what it is, and I'm going to refer to my notes because I'm not an electrical engineer, but this is really basic, from what I understand, very basic electrical engineering. And what it is that it created insulated sides that were able to conduct electricity. So it was built like a mini capacitor. Um, and the way that it was designed, the two cherubs or two angels on the top were focal points for the energy that was produced by the positive and negatively charged metal sides and the base. So now you're going from something that's nuclear to something that's pure electrical. Now, in other accounts, in other books besides the basic Torah and other Hebrew books, it talks about the space between the angels being the seat of God, and that from that space that you would have sparks and fire and things emanate. So you have these two angels atop, both with points that are pointing out like this, and then you have the focal point from the energy that's created within the box that's transferring between the two angel wings. And the thing that was really, I mean, besides that just being amazing itself, was that the chest plates that the priests wore apparently were able to receive some type of frequency from the electricity that was conducted between the two angel wings that would light up different sequences of data on these gems on their chests. And the way that it's best described is there was communication almost by like a Morse code pattern. So based upon either the color that was lit, the quantity of lights per color, the arrangement of the colors, it all could be deciphered by the priests as meaning something. So it's always been spoke about, and even says in Raiders of the Lost Ark, if you remember, it was a device for speaking to God. So besides being this nuclear producer of food for millions of people for 40 years, it also was capable of communicating with some otherworldly being, whether it be God or whatever you want to call it, that the priests were able to receive through this electrical system set up by the construction and interpret from the lights that would light up on their chest plates. I mean, just absolutely amazing to me.
I mean, it's kind of like a Tesla coil. Like so just to break it down in the simple like layman's terms, because I'm a layman. So the two cherubims or whatever, the angels are shaped like a bird, facing each other, very dense metal, gold. And then there was a space. It wasn't a little space, but it was like maybe a square foot of space between them. And this is where God's image would appear. And they just say God's image. They don't say he looked like a man. They don't say he looked like it was a being, an animal. It was God's image, which was probably very much like a Tesla coil arcing back and forth between the two. And it created, God could probably made it so it actually would form a certain type of shape or being. Did it talk? I don't know, but the vibrations emanating from it into the chest and the thing was able to communicate with these priests who God gave the ability to understand and decipher what he was telling them. So whatever the case is, this is God communicating with man. It was all in the Bible. It was all written down beforehand. It was all designed by him ahead of time. It's exactly what, he designed it to be. But then I want to like the craziest part to me is, how did they lose this ark, and where do you think it is?
All right. Well,
before we do that,
yeah.
You've got all that electric stuff happening. You've got the ringlets on each side with the rods going through.
I was going right to the rods, Bill. You got it.
Take the rods out.
Never take the rods out, right?
Is there some kind of a stabilization that these rods produce? Because if you take them out,
well, if it was wood, if it was metal of any kind, you'd get zapped just like you would with electricity. And that's why God gave very specific instructions. Nobody touches it. Nobody touches it in another way other than this. Use the wood rods that slide through the thing, and the wood is not going to, conduct electricity in the same fashion an alloy would. So clearly there was, God was using, the science of electricity and energy to for whatever reason, however it was. But
It's funny because the rings were closer to the top, but in a lot of the depictions, you see the rings at the bottom.
The bottom, right? Which they say is part of the actual. Right, it's part of the positive negative charge that it probably joins the two charges together, from what I read. So it probably wouldn't work if they took the rods out. But it's so funny because I was so taken by such a simple statement that's been recorded for all these thousands of years. Was as part of this construction, the rods had to be exactly this length, made out of exactly this material. They need to be placed in this position where they are, and you can never remove them. I mean, I find that to be such an amazing thing that has made it all the way through history. That was so integral to the electrical circuit. Is basically what I think it is. Somehow it created or finalized the circuit between the two charges. I mean, it's astounding. It's amazing,
It also gives you
it
some
really
idea of the dimensions of the staff of Aaron.
12 stones. So there were 12 stones.
Really big. But if it fit in the ark, it obviously wasn't that big. Unless they turned it into a snake when they put it in, And then,
right. Or maybe they shrunk it. And then they unshrunk.
It doesn't fit. Well, turn it into a snake.
Half and half. That's the thing. Anything goes with God. If you're like, you come up to it and God says, put it in there, and you're like, well, it doesn't fit. God can shrink it down instantly. You say, now put it in. I'm God.
Yeah, you just make it a snake and then you drop it in.
Or that.
So the question is where to go. So, of course, there's a million. First of all, there's a couple of different accounts of how many arcs there actually were. So Hebrew text, and I didn't know this either, actually makes reference to there being 2 arcs being made. Now, this is also spoken about in Muslim religion, in the Quran and stuff. They've got it down as 3. It looks like the Catholic religion has it down as 1. So it looks like almost all the older religions have it as being at least 2, if not 3, different arcs. Where did it go? King Solomon built the whole temple. The entire temple of King Solomon was built to house this ark. I mean, that's what the original building was. It was placed back in the Holy of Holies. No one else was allowed to go back there except the priests. And it was taken out when it was needed. When they were sent on their way and they were wandering, like Bill said, they brought it with them and they used it for various reasons, food and protection or warfare. And then after it was given back from the Philistines, it went back into the second temple. Now, remember, they built the second temple.
By the way, I don't mean to interrupt, but the reason why the Philistines gave it back because everybody was getting sick and dying. Right. They were getting the tumors. They were getting cancer. So all these Philistines who thought they had this great weapon of power they seized from the Jews. They got it like, you know what? We don't want this. They put it on the back of a donkey and sent it. That's a Jewish guy over there. Take your thing back. We don't want nothing to do.
They stuck it in a temple with their god who was called Dagon. Right. And the Dagon ended up broken and his head was off. And
arms off.
Nuclear energy doesn't really explain that. You know what I mean? That you get more into a God paranormal thing.
God does what he wants.
That's like the Nazi symbol in Indiana Jones, right? When they have it crated.
When they burned it off the crate. That was good.
Mm-hmm.
God does what he wants, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. We're not designed to comprehend it, but if that's the way God wanted it, that's the way God wants it. With God, can you imagine that type of power? I mean, I think he goes easy on us because he wants us to be simple and evolving beings. He could appear at any time and just say, I'm God, this is what I expect you to do. And if you don't do it, you'll die. We'd all be perfect beings, not free will thinking beings. We just do exactly what he says. Because we know if we did one thing wrong, we'd be dead. And people would be dying around us all the time because they do something wrong. So I think God wants us to be free will, but he has the power to really do anything supernaturally, anything. And sometimes he does. And for whatever reason with the Jews, the Jewish people, it was all leading up to the birth and the life of Jesus. Really, he did. He he did a lot of supernatural stuff, you know, from parting the Red Sea to on and on and on. But so when they gave it back to the Philistines, and they put it, and the Jews took it back. What did they do with it next?
That's where they put it. They put it in the second temple that was built after the first one was destroyed, and that's the actual last recorded resting place of it. And that leads us to the Knights Templar, which really comes full circle again. The Templar, once they were given control and power over that region, which the region in and of itself, I mean, everybody knows it's an amazing location. You have the three world religions all housed underneath pretty much the same roof is what's going on over there. The similarities between the Hebrew and the Muslim religion are amazing too, which is why it's amazing that they don't get along. The saints are the same, the stories are the same. There are so many similarities. And even the Temple of the Rock or the Temple of the Dome, that is the Muslim temple, it contains the holy spot on that temple is a meteorite. I mean, I don't know if you guys were even aware of that. That's what people come and they touch. It's an actual piece of meteorite that's on the outside of the Temple of the Dome. That's enshrined in glass, and people come to see that. But anyway, beneath that area where the Temple of the Dome is supposed to be the Holy of the Holies from Solomon's first and second temples. So what the Templar believed, because they knew their history and they were smart guys for the most part, they believed that it was all just brought down subterraneanly when it was raided there. So you were talking about things like the Ark of the Covenant. I think it's the Great Golden Menorah. Many scrolls of texts and recorded information. And it was all subterraneously brought somewhere beneath that area that was the Holy of Holies. So the Templar apparently spent several hundred years digging. That was their main objective. So they're protecting travelers. They're doing all this other stuff, but there was an entire section of the Templar that were dedicated to being underground and digging down there. And they didn't let anybody else know about it. And what they were searching for were all these, all the above. They were looking for all this stuff. And there are several accounts of just before the fall, when the Muslims retook Jerusalem, and the Crusaders were sent back to France and the other places, was again these stories of sickness. So we see it's literally down to like the last 6 or 7 months before the Templars left Jerusalem. You were getting a lot of writing down just either simple notes or things sent to other people about sickness, very similar to what we saw earlier on in the history of the Ark.
Radiation poisoning
type stuff. So there's a good chance they found it, which is a possibility. The other really bizarre possibility is this small church. It's I think it's St. Mary's in Ethiopia, which is a very small church. It has one monk inside. And he says that the Ark is there. It's been there for a very long time, and that it's their job to guard it. Again, very strange story. It's one monk. He doesn't last very long. The lifespan of whoever is guarding this small little church is very short, 10 years, 12 years, something like that. And then a new monk comes in and takes over. So you have this issue with the leakage of nuclear material, killing off these monks very quickly. So, you have someone who goes in there that's 30 or 40 years old. They're dead within anywhere from 5 to 10 years, and then someone else takes over. From what I had researched, there is actually evidence of the Hebrew people being in that area of Africa after the fall of King Solomon of the Second Temple. So they were definitely in the area, which makes it a real possibility that there is something there. So, I mean, those seem to be the two big legends that I read.
But why? I'm just fascinated. We could go on all night about this, but I'm just fascinated by the fact that something of such immense value and such immense significance to history, but even more so to the Jewish people, how could they lose sight of that? Really, like, how did you lose? I don't think
they lose it. They hit it because they're like, this is only valuable to us if we adhere to God's will unilaterally.
Yeah.
Why don't we just hide it and do what the hell we want?
If God says hide it, then hide it. Maybe that's what they did. That could be.
Well,
That
that
could be
leads
the
God
case.
to
said hide it. I think some rabbi said hide it because we're
right
not going to go this way anymore.
in
Yeah,
all
but
three
God
We
was
religions.
want to raid the Philistines. We're going to raid the Philistines.
Right.
So hide the ark in the basement.
In the basement, right? or in the Dead Sea area where we have all those
But don't you
scrolls,
believe?
right?
But
We have
don't
all
you
those
believe
scrolls
God has
there.
the power to control the priest? And like, if he wants it somewhere, he's going to tell them.
Well, you and
Everybody
I
who
have a different. Like I think in he created everything, but I think there's a lot of going on here that is up to man. I don't believe that every single thing that occurs is
Yeah, but
directed.
every time man tried to do something that was out of what God wanted with the ark, they end up dying or getting cancer or blasted or lose a war. You would think the Jews at some point would be like, okay, I'm just going to do whatever God wants me to do with this thing, because when we don't, we all end up dead or something bad happens.
Sure.
That's
Right,
how I
but if
think.
God could control all the holy men of the world, there'd be a lot of little boys not in therapy right now.
No, he does free will. But you're
Yeah,
talking about the Ark of the Covenant. There's different. This is God. This is the transistor that lets God communicate with his chosen people. It's not just a pervert, or whatever. That's hey, you have free will. You want to be a sick pervert? That's good. Do what you're gonna, but you're gonna go to hell. You're gonna die. It's a little different when you're
Hey,
saying
well,
this is the
before you
Ark
do
of the
that, why
Covenant.
don't you put your hand on that ark?
Right, exactly. I mean, so God, you have free will to do something. I'm not saying they wouldn't, but you would think, being the Jews, the kind of ark was for them as a communication vessel from God.
It seems to
You
me
would
it
think,
became something that they knew was more powerful than they were ready to control.
yeah, and that could be it. That's why they hit it. You know what I'm saying?
Just
And
like
and
they
that's
did
why.
at the end
it's
of
also
Indiana Jones.
right. The definition of the chosen people has been argued over the centuries too. It doesn't necessarily mean chosen for
Greatness.
grandness
No,
and greatness and stuff like that.
no. The
It could
purpose.
mean to suffer, the chosen people to
Yeah,
suffer and
yeah. He chose them
um,
to suffer. He
right,
used them for a purpose, a
right,
vessel. Doesn't mean they're chosen because he likes them any better. In fact,
right.
they've suffered really more than anyone. The Jews. They've been beat down and oppressed for eons. So he chose them to be a tool or a vessel to communicate his will to all of mankind and whatever. But I don't think they're choosing like these are going to be gods or whatever. I think there's a lot of Jewish people, though, however, are very wealthy, and it's hard to deny that. There's a lot of very successful and powerful,
Yeah, but
wealthy
not
Jews.
all.
Not all,
It's
but there's
almost like
some
a speeding ticket. You're like, look, everybody was speeding. He's like, hey, I chose you.
right. Exactly.
So listen though, there's a prophecy which all three religions, all three major religions have the same prophecy. It's called the Zechariah prophecy, and it says that an earthquake will be caused by a sonic vibration, and at that time the ark will rise from the earth, and that's the next time that we will see the ark. And we can go back. Obviously, common sense tells us all the things we've been talking about. Whatever the cause of this sonic vibration that creates this earthquake, or whatever the case may be. But all three religions have this story, and they all have the same angels who will, or the same, I guess you would call angels. I don't know what they're, not saints, but will return with the ark. So it's another one of those commonalities between the three religions that say they have so many differences. But it's another three, they all have the same story. They all tell the same tale, and that will be the time when the ark is returned to man. Whether you want to, like I would put a spin on it, the ark's return to man at that time, because there's some massive evil that has to be fought, that we all have to join together, and we need the ark to defeat this evil. I mean, that would be a great story.
I look forward to, like, I don't know if it's going to be in my lifetime or not, but it'd be super cool if it was. But either way, in my opinion, this is one of the most fascinating and unsolved things. This is worse than Hoffa. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But it's believable because I'm a believer in the Bible and I believe in God. And I read if God wants something in the Bible, then it'll be there. And if he doesn't want something there, it won't be there. And so in the Bible, for whatever reason, God decided to use this ark to communicate with the people and did all this stuff. The manna and all that fascinating stuff. It's kind of sad that we've lost that part of history to, we don't know. It could be anywhere. It could be one
so
monk
many
in
others.
Ethiopia saying, I'm protecting the world from this thing, or God said, hey, leave this thing hidden till when. Maybe the Jews got it stashed away. Who knows? But whatever the case is, it's just a fascinating piece of history. Not only that, but I mean, legend and lore and myth all wrapped in one. Really, it was crazy. The Ark of the covenant between God and mankind, is somewhere out there, lost in the world, and I don't believe it's lost. I believe they know exactly where it is. Somebody knows where it is, but I believe God has instructed those people to keep it quiet. Otherwise, if it was left up to man, I think they would blab. Somebody would blab about it. Go, I know where it is, and then before you know it, I don't know. I really don't know. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen?
Yeah, I got one. Remember in Indiana Jones when they opened it up and the clay tablets had turned to a powder?
Yes.
Yeah.
How realistic do you think that is? I always pictured it would be fragmented clay tablets, fossilized.
Yeah, I mean, we see tablets throughout history being recovered from arid locations and being intact, being in very good condition. Some still have their paint and stuff on them that hasn't gone away yet. I like the idea of thinking that maybe that because the Nazis opened it, all they found was dust and sand. If a holy person who was righteous opened that chest, maybe they would have found something else. Maybe that would have been something else in there. That's the way I always looked at it. That the emptiness and the sand was because who opened it.
The Nazis weren't like you said, righteous enough. They didn't deserve to see what's in there in the tablets. God could have used some sort of electronic, vibrating, nuclear, radioactive waves, whatever you want, because he's God, to just turn it to dust and say, no, someone like you doesn't have the right to see what's in this ark, and you gotta die for even looking in there.
Yeah. I do love that now with this new information that I wasn't really aware of. I do like the tie together that the ark really represents so many different ideas. It represents religious ideas, it represents supernatural ideas, and really it represents science fiction or science advancement that we had no idea was even capable during that time period. And in terms of a machine that creates food for 40 years, not even capable now. So to me, the ark represents really, really grand ideas from theology, from science fiction, and from the supernatural realm. And that's what I really think makes it very, very fascinating and worth so much more research and time. And like you said, hopefully one day, if not more information is found, then maybe the ark itself can be found.
Just the food source alone. Wasn't the manna, though, it was gathered? It was spread out over an area, right? Like they gathered it in baskets and things.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
but they also, there was a jar with manna in it in the ark that just always had manna. That's what they say,
but when the manna was produced, it was scattered along the ground, right?
Yeah. Right. I think it was both. I think.
So maybe it was some kind of germination, like I said, this is a fairly new idea to me. I really had no idea about this at all. So,
it was some weather-related phenomena. It had something to do
maybe the ark caused it, though. Maybe the ark caused
I think it definitely did. I think it definitely did. I think
it's all supernatural. At the end of the day, this is all supernatural stuff for humans from God. I mean, we can try to theorize scientifically what it did and how it did it, but that's ridiculous. We're humans. You're talking about God. We can try to figure it out.
Tool chest for the wandering Jews. That's what it was. My dog agreed too.
Any more than we're going to figure out how Noah finally got all those animals into.
Exactly. It's impossible. We can't wrap our minds around it. Maybe we'll do another show in the near future about the ark. Noah's Ark. That'll be fascinating. That'll be very cool. We can theorize scientifically how he did that, if it could be done. But for now, I think I hope we left everybody with some food for thought on the Ark of the Covenant. Somewhere out there in our world is this ark, very religious artifact that has massive power that God basically gave to the Jews, told them how to build it and construct it, and uses kind of like an electric communication device, way, like he said, way ahead of our time technologically, but not ahead of God's time. But whatever they did something there that really was. It wasn't just like they made it up. It wasn't like they, a couple of people saw it. This went on for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and hundreds and thousands of people saw this and were exposed to this in their temples and whatever. So it's definitely something fascinating and worth looking into. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was definitely a power that they were not ready for.
Yeah, I think it's a power that nobody's ready for, and that's why it's still hidden, probably. Like I said, I'm only speculating. I don't like to say anything with that type of tone where, like, they're only this, they're only that. I don't know. Just on speculation, I feel like God is either hiding it for a reason or man is hiding it for a reason. Whatever the case, I'd love in our lifetime for us to find out. But I think that's it for next show. What do we want to do? The Holy Grail? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we should stick to. I wanted to do like the Grail and the Shroud of Turin, which actually ties into some of this nuclear or radioactive type stuff. So maybe we can do a nice tie-in with that. I think it would be good.
Guys, I know an expert on the Shroud of Turin. I don't know him real well, but I've met him. Maybe we can get him as a guest if you want.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah.
He tours around with a replica of it, and he is
wow.
of it.
Yeah, see if you can hook that up. I'd love that.
Yeah, it's a stretch, but I have met him a couple times personally, maybe.
Well, send him an email. You never know. I'm sure he'd probably like to come on and talk about it. We'd love to talk to him.
Me.
Nobody forgets you. Nobody forgets. All right, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure.
During my speech.
Well, it's been a pleasure, you guys. I appreciate you guys. I got company downstairs waiting on me, so I hate to cut it short. I got to run. But Bill, thanks for joining us again.
My pleasure.
I think you were going to appreciate this. I hope you did, and God bless. We'll do it again.